To judge a man is to judge his actions. In the Homeric Ethics, a man is solely judged by his actions. It does not matter what you think, feel, or say. What matters is what you do or what you did. And this is a contrast to our modern ethical landscape, where we might consider someone's intentions, besides his actions, of course. And this is just one area in which the Homeric values differ from our modern values. Some more are the different views on what makes a man, on society, on death, fate, and life, all of which we will look at in this video. And now, let's continue our already started topic of judging a man by his actions. Hermann Frankl wrote of the Homeric man that a man and his actions become identical, and he makes himself completely and adequately comprehended in them. He has no hidden depths. This is a refreshing view to judge someone. Either one did an action or one did not do an action. And there are not so many excuses to be made. There are not so many thoughts to be made about what might have been someone's intention. It is all about if someone did the action or someone did not do the action. But there's much, much more to Homeric ethics than only this topic of action. And to better understand some more topics of Homeric ethics, we have to first look at how the society was at this Homeric age and how a man's identity was made up. And exactly this we will do now. How does morality play out in the Homeric society? And how did people judge if someone did the right or wrong thing? The answer: people judged according to how well a man fulfilled his social role. The society reflected in the Homeric poems is one in which the most important judgments that can be passed upon a man concern the way in which he discharged his allotted social function. It is because certain qualities are necessary to discharge the function of a king or a warrior, a judge or a shepherd, that there is a use for such expressions as authoritative and courageous. So it's not just to do any action, it is to do the right action according to your social role. And this right action can differ if you are king, shepherd, judge or warrior. The fulfillment of your role in society is again done by one thing, by your action. It does not matter so much what words you talk. You can talk all day long, but what matters if your words are proven correctly by the corresponding action. And now we might ask ourselves, how can one fail in this society? And well, one can fail in the society when someone is not doing those things what is expected from him by his social role. You cannot avoid blame and penalty by pointing out that you could not help doing what you did, that failure was unavoidable. You may, of course, certainly point this out, but if your performance failed to satisfy the appropriate criteria, then you simply cannot prevent the withdrawal of the description of kingliness, courage, and cleverness or cunning. This is a big difference to our modern society. We can say today that I didn't do an action because failure is most likely certain or death is certain. We would analyze, we would look at the intentions, what someone might has, like what I said already in the beginning, right? We would look if the risk was maybe too high, what could the agent have done differently, and so on and so on. We would think much, much more about it, right? Like we would analyze much more the outcome, and the action is for us, not so primarily the focus. Of course, it's the focus, but there are many other focus points. In the Homeric society, if you didn't did the action, what your social role expected from you, you got blamed. And you got the blame no matter if failure was most likely certain, even if death was most likely certain, you got blamed for it. One example is found in the Odyssey, where Odysseus, upon his arrival home, blames the suitors on the ground of their false belief that he will not return home. Now in our modern days, we could say that the suitors had a wrong belief and because of that did the wrong actions. So maybe the wrong actions were or are more or less justifiable because they had a wrong belief, right? They had different intentions or just the wrong belief to start with. So maybe the actions are justifiable. So we clearly separate the belief with the action. Odysseus blames his suitors foremost for their wrong belief and also their wrong actions. And why is that? Because in Homeric ethics, the belief and the actions are basically one and the same thing. They don't separate the belief from the actions. It does not matter what someone's intentions were or what someone's wrong belief were. They got blamed basically for their wrong belief. They can't make the excuse, hey, please, Odysseus, have pity on us because we had a wrong belief and because of that we did the wrong actions. The wrong action is the wrong action. So no matter what your intentions were, what you thought of, what your belief was, it doesn't matter. The suitors are blamed precisely for having a false belief. But this is what, in a modern sense, we would feel we could not blame people for. For to believe is not to perform an avoidable action. And it is not that Homer thinks that beliefs are voluntary. He is engaged in an assessment to which what the agent could or could not have done otherwise is irrelevant. What someone could have done does not matter. What someone believed wrongly does not matter. It does not protect one. If someone did a wrong action, and the action was really wrong, it is just wrong. And now, many actions, especially in a wartime, lead to one outcome, death. And exactly at this topic we will look now. No matter if someone is a king or a shepherd, if someone is virtuous or not, if someone is brave or not, death is waiting for everyone. Yet one central theme of heroic societies is also that death waits for both, those with and without virtues alike. Life is fragile. Men are vulnerable, and it is of the essence of the human situation that they are such. For in heroic society, life is the standard of value. If someone kills you, my friend or brother, I owe you their death, and when I have paid my debt to you, their friend or brother owes them my death. The more extended my system of kinsmen and friends, the more liabilities I shall incur of a kind that may end in my death. And this kind of morality is what we call an eye for an eye. If someone kills my brother, I am indebted to my brother to kill this person. Now I killed this person, now this brother and his friends are indebted to this person to kill me, etc. And this is of course a vicious circle. Now, thanks to René Girard's ideas, in which we talked about in some previous videos, we learned that Christianity most likely changed this morality of an eye for forgiveness. Instead of killing this other person and having revenge, like Christianity put the mechanism, so to speak, of forgiveness at its place. Okay, coming back to the topic of death. Death is coming for everyone. And I can just imagine that in Homeric age, the people there were extremely aware of death because it was most likely a daily phenomenon. And in addition, it is really interesting to see also from this quote that especially the most powerful people there, they had many friends, they had many kinships, they had like a big network of people. And what that means, also we can, like we just heard in the quote before, that they had a lot of liabilities. So when some of their friends were killed, they had the liability to avenge or revenge them. So what we can figure out from this is that the most powerful persons in this Homeric age were also the most likely to die, because they had just their biggest network of friends and kinship. And this is something I feel that we reverse in our modern society. The most powerful people today are truly not the people who are most likely to die fast. One example is that in Homeric society, the most powerful people were mostly fighting in the front lines with their own men. They are like fighting in the front lines to gain glory, for example. Of course, now we can say, why they even want to gain glory. But it's also like a type of skin in the game, right? Like a type of that I'm the most powerful, so I'm the most responsible, and I have the most skin in the game, and I have to prove also my strengths to my own people. That's why they follow me, right? Because I'm like a good warrior, for example. So I go in the front lines to fight, to show everyone that I am worthy of this responsibility, of this power over my own people. And that's why I also go in the front lines with my own people. Strongly connected with the topic of death is the topic of fate. And the Homeric people strongly believed in fate, that everyone had his or her fate. This is an interesting ethical point because Homeric people, at least what I could read out of this text, did not believe so much of the outcome or the result of their own action. Believed not so much is the wrong word. Like they did not think that they can control the outcome or the result of their actions perfectly. They can control their own actions, yes, but they can't control the outcomes of their actions. Fate controlled it. Fate is much more powerful than they are. And fate is, of course, also like an analogy in this Homeric time to the gods, for example. That the gods influence them or influence the outcome. So they are not totally responsible for the outcome, but they are responsible for their own actions. Moreover, there are powers in the world which no one can control. Human life is invaded by passions which appear sometimes as impersonal forces, sometimes as gods. This probably explains another big difference to our modern society, that in our society we judge our actions mostly by the outcome or the result of that action. While in Homeric society it was solely judged by the actions, which I just said before. But why is it? Because they put such an important focus on fate. When they can control fate, when fate controls the outcome, of course, they just focus on the actions, what they can control. The question is, if someone stands in battle and fights, or someone runs away. And the outcome of running away would most likely be life. And the outcome of standing and fighting a battle would most likely be death. Good action does not always lead to a good outcome, because fate controls the outcome. That's why they put so much focus on the action or the behavior. Now another example, just yesterday I talked with my wife about cheating on exams. In Homeric society, the person would be cheating on an exam and the outcome would, let's say, a pass or like a good grade, but the person would be highly blamed because the action was morally wrong or ethically wrong. In our society, I'm not so sure. When the outcome is good, I don't know if we blame this person for cheating. Of course, we would blame it, but I think in this Homeric society, it would be blamed much, much more for the wrong action done. Recall that epic heroes were judged by their actions, not by the results. No matter how sophisticated our choices, how good we are at dominating the odds, randomness will have the last word. We are left only with dignity as a solution, dignity defined as the execution of a protocol of behavior that does not depend on the immediate circumstance. It may not be the optimal one, but it certainly is the one that makes us feel best. Grace under pressure, for example. Now this in one sentence. Heroes are heroes because they are heroic in behavior, not because they won or lost. So when death awaits everyone, why not aim at the highest we can possibly aim at in our lives? The man who does what he ought moves steadily towards his fate and his death. It is defeat, not victory, that lies at the end. To understand this is itself a virtue. Indeed, it is a necessary part of courage to understand this. But what is involved in such understanding? What would have been understood if the connection between courage, friendship, fidelity, the household, fate and death had been grasped? Surely, that human life has a determinate form, the form of a certain kind of story. It is not just that poems and sagas narrate what happens to man and woman, but that in the narrative form, poems and sagas capture a form that was already present in the lives which they relate. So it is most likely that the Iliad and also the Odyssey were not just like some fantasy stories, so to speak, but they were stories which people probably really had, of course in an exaggerated form, but still the core might be similar. People saw the life most likely as a story. And now the question is, what keeps us seeing our own lives as a story? What stops us from living a courageous or virtuous life? What stops us to strive for an heroic life for ourselves? I mean, of course, it sounds now really impossible somehow, right? Like to strive for ourselves to be some kind of heroes, but I think it isn't. Why can't we see our life as a story, of an heroic story, of a beautiful story even, right? And of course, we can now say our lives are boring. And we can't have the lives, for example, in war or something like that, yeah? Like in the Homeric age. And of course, probably not. But we can still do our heroic actions, so to speak. Maybe not just that we fight wars or something, but we can still prove them in our daily lives, even if we think our lives are boring. We can still be courageous, standing up for our own opinion. We can still be kind, helping other people, right? Like in a selfless way. We can still show those attributes from heroes, just in a much smaller way. And of course, maybe we don't get into any history books or something like this, but maybe this is not what it's all about, right? What it's about is that we could probably see our life as a story. In general, it is difficult to compare our society to the societies of the Homeric age. Even if we attempted this here today in this video, it is of course not always possible, because what I also did is I judged the Homeric societies from our modern view, right? And if this is so entirely possible, I'm not so sure of. But I think what is entirely possible is to see some good aspects what the Homeric people had, what the Homeric societies had, what the Homeric ethics embodied, right? For example, that life is fragile and accepting death, or like dealing much more with death, because death is also a topic which we today put totally to the sideline. Another is like that we have to think about, do we really judge only the outcome of our actions, or are maybe the actions much more important than the outcome itself? Homeric ethics appeals to common sense because the Homeric hero aims at clearly desirable goals and aims at them realistically. Success, social status, power, wealth and honor are readily intelligible goals, and the hero aims at them without apology. He has no illusions about the dangers he faces, but the hazards of his life do not lead him to despair. Now, how can it look like when people adopt those Homeric ethics and Homeric values and act them out? And what can we probably take away from them? This exactly we will do in the next videos of this video series, because this was just basically the introduction video to the Homeric ethics or Homeric society. And in the next two videos, we will look at the Iliad, where We look at Achilles and his story, and also at Hector. And the same, we will also look at the Odyssey, with Odysseus as the hero of the story. And one more note in the end, because I forgot it before, is that all the sources I use are in the description below. And also some more additional information you can all find in the description, or sometimes also in the comments below.